The Radical. Fundamental Principles of Freedom, Rational Self-Interest, and Individual Rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Saturday, November 8th. Hope everybody's doing well. I hope you've got having a good weekend, or starting off a good weekend. All right, I am back for a little while, not for very long. I'm back for a few days here in Puerto Rico, so we will have shows today, tomorrow, Monday from Puerto Rico, and then Tuesday I'm flying again, but we should have shows on Tuesday and Friday from the road. So that should be the schedule this week. No shows on Wednesday and Thursday. For those of you in San Francisco, I will be doing a debate. I'm not sure exactly what the format's going to be. They still haven't clarified it to me, but about Christianity in Western civilization. That'll be on Wednesday evening. And you can get information on that on my website, yaronbrookshow.com. Just scroll down and you'll get events. And then if you're in Colorado, then on Thursday night I will be in Colorado Springs at the University of Colorado Springs, debating a socialist, a kind of a real socialist, but a little unconventional. His views are a little unconventional in terms of his views of socialism. But that should be really good and exciting. Hopefully there'll be a packed audience. It's at a university. A lot of people interested in this issue. So it would be great if I had a few people who agreed with me, because I have a feeling that it'll be packed. Even though it's in Colorado Springs, a very conservative part of the country, I suspect at the university they're just as leftist as at any other university out there. So yeah, it'd be great if you guys showed up and came and were at the event and supported capitalism, supported my position in the debate. All right, so we're going to be talking about kind of really the insanity of the last week and a half, just the craziness out there in the world. I mean, I say insanity, but on the other hand, it's very predictable, a very predictable situation. By the way, I was heckled in Lisbon. Three people who came up and started yelling about the fact that I was a Zionist and therefore should not be talking about capitalism. So they were unelegantly escorted out of the room and thrown out. But if you watch the discussion, the video from the Lisbon event, you'll catch a little bit of the excitement around that. I don't know what to expect in Colorado Springs. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the supporters of socialism, the leftists, showed up in anticipation of not accusing me of being a capitalist, God forbid, but accusing me of being a Zionist. That is the ultimate insult these days from the left. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was some excitement around that. But security, I'm pretty sure, will be robust at the event in Colorado Springs. All right, so what has been going on? Well, we all know, I think everybody knows, that Zolan Mamdani, an explicit socialist, an explicit hater of Israel, basically a river to the sea, globalize the jihad, kind of leftist and a socialist. Government should own the means of production. What did he say in a speech just after the election? There's no issue small enough that the government shouldn't have any interest in it and shouldn't be able to make things better. So kind of a interventionist at a level we've never seen, I think, in this country, or at least not in a high-profile position. A real socialist, a socialist of the state owning the means of production type socialist. Again, I don't think we've seen anybody quite like that at this level of government. And somebody who combines kind of the anti-Semitism, anti-Israel, anti-Western civilization, anti-Enlightenment aspect of the left with a kind of a Marxist owning the means of production combination. So he is the real thing. He is the real thing, and we will see how much damage he can actually do in New York. One of the things that I think went underreported was that the number of kind of far-left progressives elected the city council is also kind of at historic levels. So he has got a city council that is very favorable towards his agenda, and therefore, at least at the city level, he will have a lot of influence. He will be able to shape a lot of policy and do a lot of harm. Exactly what harm, hard to tell. So, and he is, he just to give you a sense, he was in Puerto Rico, I guess, last few days for some conference they do once a year with politicians from New York, and he went to a local mosque here. And this is a mosque in which the preacher kind of said that October 7th said during while Zolan Mamdani was there, praised October 7th. This is the level of hostility, the level of hatred of Israel and of, I think, more broadly of Jews that Mamdani represents from the left. Ultimately, all of that represents, as we'll talk about in a little bit, all of that represents a real hatred of the Enlightenment, of the West, the Western civilization, what Western civilization represents and is. So that was going on the left this last week, and the left is definitely celebrating. I'll just mention the fact that it was a clean sweep, pretty much, for Democrats across the board. Democrats won the governorship in New Jersey. They won the governorship in Virginia, taking it from a Republican. They won many of the kind of local elections. They won state houses, state senates, state House of Representatives. They won mayoral races. They also won the redistricting battle in California. A clean sweep for Democrats across the board. In addition, I mean, the one more positive thing was in Minneapolis, where the current mayor, who is just a progressive, not a far left progressive, but just a progressive, beat a Somali who was challenging him, who was far left. But supposedly he only won because of a dispute within the Somali community among the different clans. I don't know, but that was at least reasonable news, I guess. When a moderate progressive wins versus a progressive wins, that's good news. But Democrats won across the board, and one has to a large extent, this is a repudiation, I think, of Trump. To a large extent, this is the existential angst that exists right now about many of Trump's policies. In many of these locations, there was a massive swing from people who voted for Trump to people who voted Democratic this time, particularly among, can you guess? Can you guess who voted for Trump now will no longer want to vote for Trump? Well, among Hispanics and among Asians. I think the swing among Asians was something like 42 points. Swing among Hispanics was 40-something points. 20-something points. So, I mean, you kind of get a sense maybe the Hispanic population, even those who voted for Trump in the first, this year, maybe are not too happy with the ICE phenomena, maybe not too happy with having their relatives, and maybe even in some cases themselves, being detained, and in some cases being deported. and at the same time, of course, on the economic front, prices still increasing, price inflation still evident, things not getting better, just things not getting better. If anything, the employment situation today versus when the election was held a year ago, the employment situation is worse. The only thing that's significantly better in terms of the economy right now, vis-a-vis a year ago, is the stock market. I think there was something about consumer sentiment that came out at the lowest point. Is only one point that is lower in the history of the survey, and that was during the post-COVID inflation. So yeah, people aren't happy. People are not happy with the Trump administration, and I think that got reflected in the ballot box during this election. And it does not bode well for the midterms. And look, all of this in spite of another fact that all the polls show, and that is that people don't like the Democratic Party. They really do not like the Democratic Party. All right, we're going to put that aside because I really want to talk more about Zolan Mamdani and kind of the far left than to talk about just the swing in the election. We'll get to that. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that in the days, weeks, months, years to come. At the same time, so that was going on the left. The left saw the victory of a far leftist. I think this emboldened the progressives. It emboldened the socialists. It emboldened the anti-capitalist. It emboldened the anti-Semites on the far left. And we'll probably be seeing many more candidates like Mamdani, although I think Mamdani's unique, but we'll be seeing a lot more of those candidates. And I think that generally the movement, the political movement, the cultural movement that he represents is going to be much more emboldened. Much more emboldened. At the same time as all of this is going on, the right, the far right, the anti-Semitic, racist, anti-Enlightenment, anti-Western civilization, might I say anti-American, right, has been dominating the news and has been all the talk and all the conflict on the right. Indeed, the reality is that if I look at my news feed, if I look at Twitter, if I look everywhere else, the Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson heritage has dominated the discussion out there. And the Heritage Foundation in particular, we've talked about this in a previous show, but it's only gotten worse. I mean, it's hemorrhaging donors, employees are leaving. There is significant debate within the organization. There is unhappiness with leadership. And every time they kind of backtrack and kind of explain themselves, and the reason for all this is the fact that basically the leadership of Heritage has come out basically in overwhelming support and kind of support forever. We are friends forever with Tucker Carlson, no matter what he does, no matter who he platforms, no matter who he supports, no matter how, again, anti-Semitic, anti-American, anti-Western civilization he becomes. Heritage will stick with him. And of course, this has been the last 2 weeks, peak. I mean, hopefully it's peak. Hopefully it doesn't go from here. Peak Nick Fuentes Groyper's popularity. New York Times ran a story during the week that, according to the sources they have in the White House, and among Groyper's, I guess, and I don't know if you want to just say this is the New York Times being hysterical or not. It's hard to tell when the New York Times has a smidgen of truth and when it's just completely crazy. But they are arguing that about 40% of staffers, young staffers in the White House, in this administration, are fans of Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes then went up on his show and said, oh, no, they are way underestimating. It's much more than that. And of course, we saw about 2 weeks before the Nick Fuentes thing, before Nick Fuentes was interviewed by Tucker. We saw the leaked chats by young Republicans. They were Nick Fuentes-like. So the prevalence of racism, anti-women, and anti-Semitism, and again, I will add to that, anti-Western civilization, anti-American, the prevalence of that on the right is truly, I mean, just unbelievably shocking. Just shocking. Over the weekend, well, it wasn't over the weekend because the weekend is now. I'm a little discombobulated in terms of time and where I am and everything, just because of all the flying and the changing of time zones and what day it is and so on. The over the last couple of days, I guess Megyn Kelly has been hosting a interview show live on stage. I'm not sure exactly what the host was, but well attended, hugely attended, and she interviewed Tucker Carlson, and she asked Tucker Carlson, "Why didn't you ask?" A lot of people are saying, "Why did you ask tough questions of Nick Fuentes?" And Tucker got all defensive and basically said, "It's my show. I'll do whatever the hell I want. And if you want to ask Nick Fuentes tough questions, you have a show. You invite Nick Fuentes on and ask him questions." This is not targeted at Megyn Kelly, who's very pro-Tucker and very friendly and very nice to Tucker as part of the whole rights sucking up the Tucker agenda. But this was targeted at whoever might have dared to ask such a question. The next day, she interviewed Ben Shapiro. And look, I have a lot of disagreements with Ben Shapiro, starting with the fact that he is a religious Jew, and I am not, and the fact that he has been willing to give basically to give a thumbs up to much of what Donald Trump does, and I have not, and huge disagreements between us. I mean, massive. And yet, in all of this, in all of what's happening right now, Ben Shapiro, by far, is the most rational of all the commentators out there. He has broken down Nick Fuentes and criticized him, I think, rationally and properly. If you want to see Nick Fuentes videos, if you're not convinced by me saying he's an anti-Semite, I'm not showing Nick Fuentes videos here, but if you want to see, just look up Ben Shapiro's criticism of Nick Fuentes. He's got a montage of Nick Fuentes, going after Jews and so on. So you can get a sense of what Nick Fuentes like. If you need that, not highly recommended. The guy is a real scumbag, really slimy and not particularly aesthetic to watch as he does this. He gives us pretty disgusting vibes to me. So Ben Shapiro's really been a bright light here, and he was with Megyn Kelly. I mean, he was principled. He called evil evil. He went after Candace Owen. He chided Megyn Kelly for not taking a position when being confronted with evil. He went after Tucker Carlson, although he was a little bit too friendly to Tucker. Still willing to forgive Tucker. Still willing to work with Tucker if Tucker did these things. God, at some point, you just have to give up, Ben. Some of these people are just plain evil, and you just have to walk away. You just have to give up on them. So Ben has done a good job. Ben is in a difficult situation because many of his listeners are probably turning their backs on him. Indeed, I look at what's going on right now with Ben Shapiro, the Nick Fuentes, and then Matt Walsh, basically saying we need everybody in the tent. We need a big old tent to beat the left. We need to invite anybody who wants to be in our tent to beat the left. Matt Walsh, of course, is part of the Daily Wire, which is the company that Ben Shapiro founded. I don't hear much from Michael Knowles about these issues. He's kind of gone quiet, but one suspects he might not be on Ben Shapiro's side. You have to wonder about the future of the Daily Wire. I mean, how does the Daily Wire really survive with Ben Shapiro basically calling out some people on the right evil and having nothing to do with them. He actually canceled or refused to appear on Patrick Ben David's show because Patrick Ben David had interviewed Nick Fuentes. I say good for Ben for taking a principled stand against platforming evil. And yet Matt Walsh is calling at the same time, why can't we all get along? Shouldn't we all be in the same big umbrella? Michael Knowles probably agrees with Matt Walsh. I don't know if he's actually made it. I don't know how they stay in the same platform. I mean, a number of people have already left the Daily Wire because of their disagreements, I think, with Ben Shapiro around Israel, around anti-Semitism, and around people like Nick Fuentes. Of course, Candace Owen being the most prominent of them, but she's not the only one. Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles going to leave as well. If Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles leave, is the Daily Wire still the Daily Wire? Is it still sustainable? Is it still doable? Can he make enough money? Can Ben Shapiro make enough money to sustain it by himself? Are the other people in the Daily Wire really be able to fill in the gap if they leave? I doubt it. I mean, as irrational as I think as Ben Shapiro is, he is way too rational for the American right today. He's way, too pro-American, way too pro-Western civilization for the insane, nutty right today. So can he survive? I mean, based on the comments that I got, right? I posted good for Ben to the idea that he didn't appear with Patrick and David. Oh my God. The number of anti-Semites who showed up is just unbelievable. Slamming me, slamming Ben, some of the most really ugly, horrific stuff. I'm sure that's just a fraction of all the ones out there. And so it really is hard to see. I mean, I don't know what Ben's numbers are. I mean, I'm sure they're huge, and I'm sure he has a huge following. And I want to believe that there's enough people on the right who are still sane and rational and fairly good that Ben can sustain, can sustain his following. But I'm not. We'll see. We'll see. And again, the Daily Wire is a whole organization. And is that whole organization sustainable if some of the more Christian parts of the channel or the platform leave? Don't know. I don't know. Of course, Jordan Peterson is part of the channel, but Jordan would leave. I think Jordan would be on Ben Shapiro's side. But Jordan is sick. He hasn't taped anything new in a long time. I don't know if and when he's going to get better. I don't think he's bringing much revenue right now for the Daily Wire. I don't know, right? I have no inside information, but I wonder how sustainable the whole thing is. A few other things worth noting, particularly about Tucker. Tucker. A lot of people are saying Tucker's not anti-Semitic. He's just anti-Israel, and he's just asking questions about the support the United States provides to Israel. Well, I mean, that is just a cop-out, because actually analyzing what Tucker says and what he does makes it very clear his positions. For months now, all he talks about are Jews and Israel, as they are genocides, as they are horrific acts of violence all over the world. And as Mamdani gets elected mayor of New York, I mean, Tucker's supposed to be part of this coalition to fight the left, and yet he talks very little about the left. And indeed, in his latest newsletter, Tucker Carlson spent the newsletter defending Mamdani as actually not really anti-Semitic, Mamdani not anti-Semitic because just like him, he's just attacking Israel and the real problem of the Jews. So I don't think there's any question in terms of Tucker's anti-Semitism. I don't think that's up for really debate once you actually look at the evidence. And it's stunning the Heritage Foundation sticking with him as part of this coalition to fight the left when Tucker does very little to fight the left. He'd rather, question whether Hitler was as bad as we really think he was, whether Churchill might have been the worst leader in really the evil guy during World War II. He'd much rather ask questions about Israel and the Jews than actually engage in going after the left. So it's curious what it is that Heritage is defending. It's curious to me what it is the right is rallying around. What is really motivating them? What is driving them? And I think from all of this, Heritage is obviously being torn apart right now because Heritage has what you would consider old line Republicans who are God, what is going on? Right. God, what was I talking about? This is my mind is still consumed by jet lag, I guess, or handicapped by jet lag. But in Heritage, there's some old line conservatives who are still hanging on to kind of old, generally pro, maybe a little bit of markets, not too much, but a little bit. Pro-American founding fathers. They still mention the founding fathers and maybe Constitution and Declaration. They tend to be not anti-Semitic. They tend to be pro-American and pro-Western civilization, even if they put too much of an emphasis on religion. These are kind of the mainstream, conservatives of the past, kind of miss them. Suddenly, they've discovered that their institution is being run by people who have endless respect for Tucker Carlson of 2025. Not Tucker Carlson of 5 years ago, not even Tucker Carlson of 3 years ago, certainly not Tucker Carlson of 10 years ago, but Tucker Carlson of today. They are being managed by people whose allegiance is to Tucker Carlson, the platformer of Nick Fuentes, who's driven by, both of them are driven by anti-Semitic hatred. So what's going on here? So I want to step back a little bit so Heritage is being torn apart, and we'll talk about that as Ann mentions in the super chat. Stephen Moore resigned from Heritage, although I'm a little pissed off at Stephen Moore because when he resigned from Heritage, he didn't say he was resigning from Heritage because of this, which he should have had the courage to do. He's been at Heritage for a long time. He said he was pursuing other things. It would be nice to take a moral stand, Stephen. I know Stephen Moore. We know each other. Stephen, if I see him, I definitely intend to say something to him. The timing made it clear, but God, it makes such a difference when you actually are willing to use your platform to say, this is why I'm leaving Heritage. It would have been so much clearer and so much more powerful of a statement if that had happened. Several people now have also left Heritage. Indeed, today, was it today or yesterday? Probably yesterday. Yesterday. The Heritage Foundation Chief Advancement Officer, Andy Olivestro, sent out an email to the think tank partners saying, the Heritage Foundation is rooted in principles and policies, not personalities. I guess nodding Tucker Carlson. We will not make the mistake of placing individuals, Tucker Carlson, even friends, Tucker Carlson, above the critical mission of the institution that all of us are entrusted to steward. I think I told you that the Heritage Foundation has this anti-Semitism project that they're doing with partners. Well, basically they're being kicked out of it, or the partners have left They do not want to collaborate with Heritage Foundation on this project of anti-Semitism as long as they continue to be apologists for Tucker. So how did the right become so crazy and so fringe? How did somebody like, really a juvenile clown like Nick Fuentes have so much leverage that Tucker Carlson is willing to risk everything to have him on his platform and to talk to him, and Heritage is willing to risk implosion in order to basically have one big happy tent with an anti-Semitic Tucker Carlson. How come Tucker Carlson is as big as he is? What about the left? I mean, most of the left, and I know some of you won't like this, but most of the left are not Mamdani fans. I don't think Mamdani could win on a national ticket. I certainly hope not. Most people on the left are not anti-Semitic, and they're not pro-Hamas. Although the number of people who are anti-Israel has grown significantly, I think very few people, if they understood, or if they had even an inkling of what globalized intifada actually meant, I don't think most people are pro-globalized intifada. Why are these fringe characters coming to dominate our intellectual life? How are these fringe characters coming to dominate politics? Where did they come from? Is it true that these people have always been racists and anti-Semites on the right, and always been anti-Semites and anti-Western civilization on the left? I mean, to some extent, I think that's more true of the far left than it is of the far right. But maybe not. Maybe they've always been this. But if they've always existed, if this has always been a big chunk of the left and a big chunk of the right, then why were they so quiet for so many years? Because I would argue that from the civil rights movement on, really until 2016, and maybe with the left, both the left and the right presented themselves as significantly more moderate, significantly more centrist. Racism, for a very long time in America, was considered, no, you just don't go there. And if somebody expressed racist ideas, they're out. You deplatform them. You have nothing to do with them. Racism was considered evil and wrong and bad and not something you deal with. And racism now is become mainstreamed. How did that happen? How did the wackos and the crazies come to dominate our conversation? I mean, anti-Semitism, I think since the 1960s, was just unacceptable on both left and right. It existed at the fringes, sure, but nobody would actually stand up and make a big deal out of it. I mean, people have been calling each other racist forever, but real racism, where is it all coming from? Now, it's true that to some extent it's always been there. I think it's elevated now, but it's always been there. America's always had an element of racism and xenophobia. But how did it get legitimized? So I think there are a number of levels of answers to this question that I think we have to dig into. And I want to add to that question this question. Why is it that this is now dominating all the news? Why isn't it just marginalized? Why isn't it the margins? Why isn't it that the periphery where it belongs? Right? A majority of Americans, I think, are not Mamdani and are not Nick Fuentes, not even Tucker Carlson. And yet, these people are what dominate the news. I don't think Mamdani could have been elected 10 years ago. I don't think Nick Fuentes or Tucker Carlson could hold the views that they have and have a following the way they do 10 years ago. What has happened? I mean, the bottom line of this, and we'll get into the details of it. But the bottom line is that the intellectuals, who at the end of the day are the guardians of society, I mean, Ayn Rand viewed them as the key to culture, to the nature of a culture. The intellectuals, at the end of the day, guard a culture against insane ideas when they're good, and elevate good ideas. At least that's what good intellectuals do. They repress bad ideas. They serve as gatekeepers. I know it's not popular to have gatekeepers, and in a world of the internet, in a world of social media, we have no gatekeepers, and maybe that's a big part of what's going on. We have no gatekeepers. But the gatekeepers have failed. The gatekeepers have nothing to say. And I think this is the key. Our intellectual class for the last 50 years, and it's gotten worse and worse and worse over time, have had nothing to say. Americans are struggling. The economy is not doing very well. People know that, right? I mean, I think the economy is doing a lot better than a lot of people, but it's still not doing very well. And for a lot of people, it's very frustrating. But more than that, people feel like they lack meaning. They lack purpose in their lives. They're clearly being lied to by the political class, and the intellectuals seem to have, in the past, kind of supported those lies. And maybe the most extreme case of that, I think, in recent history was 9/11. They were not told the truth about 9/11. And I'm not talking about some conspiracy, but they were not told the truth about who really did it. Like, what did bin Laden actually represent? What does he have as ideas? Who's behind him? Who supports him? They were not told the truth about Islam. They were not told the truth about Islamism. And then they were not told the truth about the financial crisis. They were not told the truth about what caused it. They've been lied to repeatedly. The intellectuals have lied to them. The politicians have lied to them. And of course, COVID just blew that up completely because the lies became super evident. They were right in our faces. And, the state took on power and control in ways that I don't think many Americans could have imagined was even possible in this country. And people have just given up. They've given up on the gatekeepers. They've given up on the intellectuals. They've given up on what they do. And they've gone directly to the source. Social media allows them to do that. You can go directly to anybody spouting an opinion, anybody claiming to be reporting the news, anybody claiming to tell you the truth. You can go directly and evaluate it for yourself. No need for intellectuals. Basically, the American public has voted to fire the intellectual class, and they deserve it. But there's nothing to replace it. There's nothing to replace it. And the American public, given American educational system, given progressive education, given the lack of thinking, of reason, of rationality, given the embrace of emotion above all else, given what's taught at our universities, I'm sorry, but the American people are not ready to be exposed directly to what is going on in the world and to make judgments of it. They just don't have the tools to do it. And the intellectuals are not giving them the tools. They're giving them the opposite. So if you go to university, talk about the more educated classes, if you go to university, what do you get? You get identitarian theory. You get racism. You get racism couched as sophisticated social thinking or philosophy, whether it's post-colonialism or whether it's identitarianism or whether it's intersectionality. You get secularized, altruism, Christian altruism secularized, and put on steroids in the name of collectivism and tribalism. And you go to university and you get educated and you come out of it, and then you go on social media, you go read the news, and it's easy to radicalize you. Whether to the left or to the right, it doesn't matter. Because what they have taught you is the basis for both, as we'll see, as I think is quite evident. There's not a lot of difference between Nick Fuentes and Zolan Mamdani. They hate the same thing. They hate America. They hate Western civilization. They hate Jews. They hate Israel. And they hate capitalism. God, if you've seen Nick Fuentes go off on capitalism, what difference is there? I mean, Zolan Mamdani is a little bit more honest in that he pretends to have solutions. Nick Fuentes has and doesn't pretend to have solutions. He just tells us about what is wrong with the world. And, if we just, make America great again, everything will be fine. How do you do that? He has no clue. So if you go to university, you get a pseudo-sophisticated version of the Fuentes and the Mamdanis of the world. And indeed, if you look at who voted for Mamdani, I mean, the one overwhelming, he wins, the one place where he wins overwhelmingly is with college-educated, those who are college-educated. Young, college-educated men and women voted overwhelmingly Mamdani because college prepares you for that. I mean, there's a sense in which socialism is a more pseudo-intellectual, Nick Fuentes and Mamdani are the same, but Mamdani appeals to educated people, and Nick Fuentes, appeals to uneducated people. That's the difference. The left and the right are the same. Left and the right are the same. The left just appeals. It uses language. It has theory, and it appeals to the pseudo-intellectuals of the left, the people who've gone through the universities, gone through the humanities programs. The Nick Fuentes of the world appeals to the raw emotion of the uneducated. There's no pretense of a theory. America first. That's it. America first. What does that mean? How do you interpret that? What is America? Who decides? None of that matters. Just yell at the microphone, give Nazi salutes. Adore Hitler, because Hitler was, as Nick Fuentes says, was cool, and rile just constantly about what emotionalists have always riled against, which is the Jew, and the best representation of the Jew right now is Israel. So it's two versions of the same basic ideology, one couched in sophisticated academic terms and one just raw emotion for the uneducated. And the biggest differentiation now between the left and the right is the level of education. They don't even disagree on that many issues. It's just the way in which they disagree, the way in which they justify their cause is different. So one of the so what we have is people who go through our educational system, go through schooling, and they learn very little. They know very little. They're not taught to use their minds. They're not taught to use their minds. And they're taught to emote. They're taught to feel. They're taught to respond emotionally to stimuli. And that's it. So the intellectuals at the universities are just fueling this with evil ideology. The intellectuals online who try to make any kind of rational approach, like the many economists online who criticize Trump or criticize Biden's policies and so on, gain very little traction because they're not appealing to what people want, which is, emotion, pure emotion. And they're not doing it in terms that people now understand, identity politics. And of course, social media allows us, all of us, to voice our opinions anytime, anywhere, and accumulate a following. And, as long as we can get a large group of people following us, a million people, well over a million people follow Nick Fuentes. Maybe it's much larger now after his Tucker Carlson appearance. Millions follow Candace Owens, who's completely nuts. Why anybody would subscribe to her channel, anybody watch what she has to say, even as pure entertainment is absurd and ridiculous. When anybody watches Tucker, I do not understand, given how insane he has become. And yet, they have millions of people following, and that millions of people are following because they appeal to exactly what those millions of people are looking for. They appeal to anger. They appeal to hate. They appeal to fear. And that is what's driving the conversation today in America. Anger, fear, hate. And social media makes it possible for anybody to say anything, anytime, to accumulate an audience, thus become a thing, right, that everybody has to engage with. Like, nobody would even think about platforming Nick Fuentes if he didn't have 1 million followers. And thus, we descend to the lowest common denominator. I mean, Twitter is a place where the lowest common denominator dominates. And our intellectuals, the better ones on the sidelines looking in, and they kind of, they don't know what to do. They do not know what to do. They do not know what to do. And they have nothing to offer. I mean, even if they have nothing to offer. I mean, at the end, Ben Shapiro has nothing to offer. What has he got? Rehashed Judaism. Because at the core, what is lacking is a moral code. At the core, what is lacking is purpose and meaning. At the core, what is lacking is a real political philosophy, a moral and political philosophy that can inspire and can drive people towards a better future in their personal lives and as a society. And they have nothing over. So what is Jonah Goldberg, who I like, posts a lot of interesting things? What is Ben Shapiro, who I like, posts a lot of interesting things? What do they have to offer? Like my old Christianity and my old Judaism, well, not so much Judaism, and kind of a, softball defense of some aspects of capitalism, but not too much. And some defense of the Founding Fathers, but not too much, because after all, they were a little too secular for us. What indeed do they stand for? And when it comes to meaning and purpose, what can they give? God? Make your bed, stand up straight. Search for meaning out there. The same cliches that are meaningless and people have given up on. They get large followings, but they're not going to change the world. God. All right. I've had it with Adam, who seems to be here just to insult you guys. All right. Oh, my tolerance for assholes on the chat has become very low. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's become very low. So the intellectuals that exist have nothing to offer. Nothing new, nothing exciting, nothing motivating, nothing radical. They're centrists. They're moderates. So what is the solution, you might ask? I mean, the solution is, as always, it's a long-run solution. It's a long-term solution. It's to be radical. We need to find a way to make capitalism exciting, to make the advocacy of self-interest cool. I mean, we are the ultimate, in terms of rebellion that teenagers and young people want to engage in, we're the ultimate in rebellion. We reject 2,000-year morality. We reject, basically the economic system of mankind has experimented with for thousands of years. We want something new, different, exciting. Not the washed over mixed economy, neither here nor there BS that exists today, and certainly not the socialism or communism of the left, which we know exactly what it leads to. We want something completely new, something that we got a glimpse of in the 19th century and maybe in a few places in the 20th century that has never been made a reality, never actually come to fruition. We want capitalism. We want real freedom. We're the radicals. Not Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes is like, Nick Fuentes is the same garbage that human beings have been spewing for thousands of years. In that sense, he's anti-American because he doesn't embrace the revolution that was America. What does the document say? All men are created equal, endowed by inalienable rights. I mean, that is not Tucker Carlson. That is not Nick Fuentes. That is not anybody today on the right. We reject the tribalism and collectivism of all these characters. So what is the solution? Well, the solution is to be more radical than ever. The solution is to stand up for ideas, stronger and more vocal than ever. The solution is to take advantage of the complete bankruptcy of the current intellectuals, to condemn the right and the left and the center, and offer something positive, a vision of life, a vision of living for oneself, a vision of pursuing real values, life-affirming values, rational values. We need to become, and we need to become much more vocal about reason as being our basic, as our means to know the world, to understand the world, and to choose our values. So, this is nothing new to most of you. We need to be principled, loud, aggressive advocates in every forum we can of reason, of self-interest, and of capitalism. Not to be, pro-Trump or pro the middle of the road or pro anybody in the current political world. We are radical. So we need to reject the status quo, reject the convention, reject the left, reject the right, and reject the center. We're individualists. None of those people are. Maybe some people in the center who think of themselves as centrists are mildly individualists. But we're real individuals. We're radical individualists. Yeah, published says aggressive, radical, sounds like heavy metal. Yeah, if you want to use heavy metal, use heavy metal. Any means to get our word out there. Any means to offer the world an alternative to the garbage that's being offered to them today. We're not anarchists. We're guided by reason. We're not anarchists. We believe in capitalism. But God, do we reject the Fuenteses, the Tuckers, the Owens, the Mamdanis, the socialists, the leftists, the rightists, the whole gamut of them. We need objectivism, and we need to get the values, the ideas, the principles of objectivism out there into the world. That is the solution. There's no shortcut. There's no, moderate way of doing it. And the problem with, the problem with it is we have to do it in a way that projects reason, individualism, anti-tribalism. We need to be attacking our left and our right, and the back and the front. It's hard. It's hard. But we need to keep doing it. And I don't have any easy solutions for you guys. I don't have anything that you can, go and do today other than if you're on social media, use social media. State your views. Make your case. Even if you have to be anonymous on social media. If you enjoy doing it on social media, do it. Talk to people. I mean, again, the world is sinking. This is not a time to be silent. This is not a time to say, yeah, I'm busy. It's a fight. It's a real fight. Use whatever tools you have. And, subscribe to sponsor this show like Alex. People are talking about Alex Epstein's AI. Yeah, I mean, we got to use every tool that we have. So find your voices. Make yourself heard. I mean, think about how the Nick Fuentes groypers are all over the place. Or the Mamdani socialists, leftists, all over the place. Well, we're smaller. And therefore, we need to yell louder. We need everybody to be involved and engaged, which means support ARI, the Einstein Institute, support this show, support Alex, support the people who are doing the work to get it out there. And you might notice that a lot of ARI intellectuals now, like Augustina and like Nikos, have their own Substacks, have their own YouTube channels. So support them. Make sure you subscribe to Augustina and to Nikos and to all the other ARI, Ben, and I think a bunch of them have Samantha on education. A bunch of them have Substacks now. Go subscribe to all those Substacks. Reinforce their messaging on social media. Subscribe to their YouTube channel. Support them financially. I mean, if we're going to build a movement that's going to change things, and now's the time, because never has the left and right been so disgustingly horrific. Never have they been so tribal. Never have they been so irrational. Never have they been so, I think, vulnerable to reason and rationality. So go on those platforms, use those platforms, support the good guys, and, let's change the world together. It's becoming slimy and more disgusting the more we let the Nick Fuenteses of the world and the Mamdanis of the world dominate it. I mean, it's not just Mamdani. It's like Hassan Paika, this evil bastard who is Mamdani's real good friend and who has a huge YouTube following, Paika, right? The guy who hates Jews and hates Israel and hates America, despises America, and hates all this stuff, but, got into trouble when he zapped the collar of his dog. That Paika I mean, these people are despicable. We need to stand up against them. Hassan, Hassan, I think Hassan. Jamie says, God, Hassan Piker is insufferable. Yeah, he is. And yet, he's got a massive following in spite of being insufferable. You're not doing your jobs, guys. Getting the word out there. Trying to overthrow these bastards. Trying to become more bigger and more influential and more substantial than them. Using reason instead of emotions. Got to get out there. Got to do the work. Right? You got to fight. Right? What option is there? Yeah, Islam is not the threat. Islam is growing slowly. The threat is socialism and fascism. That's the threat. Islam for Americans is an inconvenience. For Europeans, it's existential. But for Americans, it's an inconvenience. All right. That is my spiel for today. That was an hour. That was longer than I thought. All right, I will remind you that we have sponsors. Alex Epstein, that we talked about a little earlier, is one of them. And he is, of course, the world expert on things like climate change and energy policy and environmentalist policy, and incredibly insightful. Provides you with, if you subscribe to Substack, you get regular talking points. You'll know the topic better. You'll be a much better communicator of those topics. So following alexepstein.substack.com, alexepstein.substack.com, and as some people in my chat mentioned, he has an AI, Alex AI. You can ask Alex AI any question you want, you get an Alex answer. Radio Zalza says, should we become unsufferable to gain following? No. Being unsufferable does not pan out for the rational. You've got to be, what's the right term? You got to be persistent. And you've got to be willing to be radical. You got to be willing to be, principled. But don't be insufferable. Don't be insufferable. And I know being insufferable gains attention and gains you more followers, but it's too strong of an appeal to emotion to help a movement based on reason actually grow and actually be successful. Now, of course, live the philosophy, Publius says. All right, second sponsor is the Ayn Rand Institute. The Ayn Rand Institute is encouraging all of you to sign up for the Ayn Rand conference in Europe. You can come there from the US, you can come from Europe. If you're a student, you can get a scholarship, but adults can come as well. I think we're going to have an exciting program there. I will be there. Nikos will be there. Talsfani will be there. Onkar will be there, as will Ben Bear. So all of us will be there. A lot of talks. We're still working, I think, finalizing the program, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun and interesting. All right, and what else did we want to do? Yeah, we'll stick to those for today. Let me remind you all that this show is made possible from contributions from you out there, whether watching live or not. And you can support the show right here, right now, if you're live, by coming over to YouTube and supporting the show on Super Chat or a sticker. We've got goals for, we're doing pretty well with the goals, but we still have a way to go to get to our second hour goal, and we're really in the second hour. So come on over and support the show, ask a question, do a sticker. I saw Wes earlier did a $100 sticker. That should be a model for you, right? $100 stickers get us a long way into, we also got Stephen Hopper did a sticker, not $100, but it all adds up. Jacob did a sticker. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Mike did a sticker. Mike Dial. We've got quite a few stickers, and we have quite a few questions. But come on over with more. Come on over with more. And you can also support the show. Those of you who are not live, but also those of you who are live, can also support the show on a monthly basis, which I particularly like because it's very predictable and I know what's coming. You can support the show on a monthly basis on patreon.com. Just put Yaron Brook Show. Or on PayPal. Just put Yaron Brook Show and you can become a monthly supporter of the show. You can do that. $2, $10. $10, you actually get the podcast version of the show, an RSS feed that is commercial free, no advertising. But you can go all the way up to $1,000 a month if you want to do it. And indeed, if you want a regular sponsorship on the show, then $1,000 a month will buy you a sponsorship where almost every show I mention you as a sponsor. I guess for lower amounts, if you're interested in a sponsorship, we can do different levels of number of times I announce it or something like that. But Patreon is the way to get involved with all of that. All right, so yeah, go to Patreon. Go to Patreon right now. Let's try to get the numbers of Patreon. Remember what I said? Support the good guys so that we can fight the fight for you. The objectivist intellectuals are the last radical, pro-freedom, pro-capitalism, pro-individual rights, pro-egoism, pro-reason intellectuals left out there in the world. Support us. Support us. All right. Let's see. All right. Let's jump in. We've got a bunch of questions. I think, all my sticker people. Let's start with John. A few shows ago, you mentioned you were reading a book on the Islamic Golden Age, but I don't remember if you said the title. Is it Lost Enlightenment? I read that one. It's great. Thanks. I'll tell you right now what the title is. It's really good. I'm really enjoying it, and it's a lot of content which I was not familiar with. So this is about not just the Islamic Enlightenment, but the Islamic Enlightenment in Central Asia, which I didn't realize. I thought the Islamic Golden Age was basically in Baghdad and maybe in Andalusia in southern Spain. But this is all about the fact the fact that it was in Central Asia. And yes, it's called Lost Enlightenment, and it's by they've got the name of the author obscured, but it's Lost Enlightenment, Central Asia's Golden Age, from the Arab conquest to the Tamerlane. So it's all the way from the pre-Islamic era, all the way. It describes the history all the way through the past the Mongol invasions. Again, I highly recommend that you read it and get it's fascinating the extent to which Central Asia, Bukhara in Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, the geography of where Afghanistan is today, that was a thriving place, dramatically, hugely, humongously more advanced than Europe was at the time. Which is just shocking, and it shows you. Like, we talk about the Dark Ages in Europe, but there's a sense in which the Dark Ages of Islam are much, much worse. I mean, because the Golden Age of Islam, or at least the Golden Age of Islam in Central Asia, ended around the turn of the first millennium. So we're talking about maybe 1100. So it's almost 1,000 years of Dark Ages that they've experienced, which is actually similar to the Western Dark Ages, right? 400 to 1400. I mean, unbelievable the power of ideas and how giving up on Greek ideas just destroys a culture, destroys a world. And there's a sense in which you're seeing it right now. I mean, what does Mamdani and Nick Fuentes really represent, and Tucker Carlson really represent? They represent giving up on Greece, giving up on Aristotle, giving up on the Enlightenment, giving up on the Founding Fathers. And in that sense, moving us ever closer to our own kind of dark ages. That's what we're fighting. All right. Thanks, John. Andrew. George Will said something like, every 20 years, America needs to experiment with socialism to see it doesn't work. There may be truth to that, but ultimately socialism will hold if underlying ideas aren't challenged. Yeah, but where has this experiment actually happened? I mean, we haven't had socialism, not out and out socialism. And yes, once in a while we get somebody like McGovern in 72, who was, far out there leftist, who lost that election by a landslide. I mean, Nixon did better than Trump, but Trump's election is always the greatest and best in all of human history. I see Radio Zalza is doing a fantastic job on showing Steve McGowan that he is completely wrong about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So radio, go for it. I mean, that's the kind of advocacy we need. He's got the facts on his side. He's got morality on his side. But he knows his history, which is good. So I'm just observing the chat. I'm not reading everything, and certainly not in detail. But yeah, this is good. This is take him out. With logic and facts, history, actual knowledge. Wow. Antonio, thank you for the sticker. I really appreciate that. So, look, the challenge is that people don't learn. I mean, people say, oh, yes, New York will experience socialism now and it'll learn that socialism won't work. I mean, I'll be debating a guy next week who will tell you constantly, no, that's not socialism. It didn't work. It didn't work because it's not real socialism. Real socialism is this. And they'll always find an excuse. They'll always justify it. And the American people will always buy into it. Partially, and here, this is important to note, right? Partially out of a real frustration. The mixed economy sucks. I think that's a technical term. The mixed economy sucks. The mixed economy does not provide the kind of opportunities that should be available to individuals. The mixed economy does not provide the inspiration that capitalism would provide to people. The mixed economy is mixed. Some people do very, very well in it. Many people don't. And most people don't make the most of it spiritually. They feel frustrated by it. Because, ideologically, capitalism is evil and nasty and selfish and self-interested, and yet they're expected to participate in it and benefit from it, and they do, but they don't feel right about it because ultimately the system itself is not very good. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that this is, as long as we're not willing to challenge altruism, as long as we're not willing to challenge the idea of sacrifice, as long as we're not willing to challenge the idea of sacrificing some to others as being moral, we're not willing to, challenge the idea that, government should stay out of the economy completely. We can't win. Just to be a little bit more for freedom within a mixed economy is not inspiring and not going to get anywhere. Not going to get us anywhere. So, socialism keeps coming back because it's the only political system consistent with the morality that most people hold. And the morality that really goes unchallenged by the world in which we live, by the society in which we live. Oyvind, I went on vacation to Singapore and Australia. I have to say Singapore was incredible, giving me some Gulch vibes, yes. Might be some drawbacks I'm not familiar with, but truly incredible energy and fantastic buildings. Yes, I mean, Singapore is a beautiful place. It's relatively, from an economic perspective, the most free place on planet Earth. It's, you know, if you value your free speech, it's not particularly free. And you have to be careful there, careful about criticizing the government and criticizing those that run things. There are parts of its economy that are not free at all. For example, real estate. Almost all housing in Singapore is government-owned. So there are aspects of it that are problematic and unfree. There are really horrific laws, you know, death penalty for drug dealers. You know, you might get caned for throwing gum in the street, but, you know, the consequence of that is not much drugs out in the streets, and the streets are very clean. But the kind of disproportion between the crime and the punishment is quite extreme. So, yeah, I mean, Singapore is an amazing place. It should definitely be on the list of places to consider to go live in a world filled with mixed economies and mixed political systems. You know, Singapore is a pretty good deal. Is a pretty good deal in comparison to what's available in most other places. Thank you, Oyvind. Thanks for the support. Appreciate it. All right, Ali, who I owe a book review to. I remember which one was better evil? You can't have a better evil. Which one was more evil, maybe? Hitler or Stalin? Should the West have sided with Germany against the USSR? Well, no. You don't side with evil. And certainly the immediate threat to the United States, the immediate threat to Western civilization, the immediate threat to Great Britain was not Stalin. Stalin did not have ambitions in terms of, you know, invading Western Europe, you know, going to war against England or going to war even against the United States. Stalin and Russia was too poor at the time, too weak at the time to think about those kind of adventures. Hitler was the immediate threat. So you had to start with Hitler. You know, Russia did not invade Western Europe. Russia did not invade and did not attack the United States directly. So while Stalin and Hitler, I don't know, equally evil, Hitler, I think, in some respects, more so, more systematic, more thoughtful, more in his approach to extermination and more megalomaniac in a sense of wanting to rule the world and believing he could. But there's no question the West had to shouldn't have sided, put it this way, the West shouldn't have sided with anybody. This was Ayn Rand's view. It shouldn't have sided with Stalin. It should have let Stalin and Hitler beat each other up forever, or for as long as it took. But the West should have united, in my view, around Great Britain to defend Great Britain and to beat back the Nazis from the West. And certainly after Pearl Harbor, the United States should have entered the war, and the only side the United States could enter the war was the anti-Nazi side. Now, I don't think the U.S. should have supplied weapons to the Soviets. I don't think they should have given them food. I don't think they should have helped them in any way, other than by fighting Hitler on the Western Front. That would have slowed the Soviets down, but the end result would have been the same. And the fact that they would have still been occupying the Nazis on the East, it just would have resulted in probably the Western European forces taking Eastern Europe, you know, Czech Republic and Hungary and Poland, and not letting them fall to the Soviets. But both Hitler and Stalin were unbelievably evil. Stalin probably murdered more people, or put it the other way, was responsible for the death of more people. But they were both in the tens of millions of people. And of course, Stalin had a longer period of time in which to do it. So there's no question the West should have sided with Great Britain in fighting the Nazis. And then, if necessary, you fight Stalin and the communists. but the imminent threat, the immediate threat, the people who were developing, the missile systems that would, try to destroy London and could potentially have been built to try to reach America, were the Nazis, and they were the ones that needed to be taken care of. And again, you didn't have to ally yourself with the Soviets to do it. So you never, in my view, foreign policy, my view on foreign policy, you never align yourself with evil. You don't have allies who are communists or fascists. Your allies are your friends, and they have to be at least somewhat free. No, I mean, God, some people are very confused online. All right? Yeah, Greg is a weirdo. I agree with that. That is a weird statement from Greg. Online, he says, Gandhi, Hitler, Stalin, and Netanyahu, Callegri, I don't know who that is, all part of the same person. No, that's all the same type of person. It's absolutely not true. That is bizarre and ridiculous. Bizarre and ridiculous. I mean, I'm not a fan of Netanyahu, but to put Netanyahu in that league or to put Gandhi in that league is ridiculous. I'm not a fan of Gandhi's either. But to put them in that league, to put neither one of them is evil in the same sense as Hitler and Stalin are evil. All right, Greg turns out to be a nativist. Okay, not surprising. Okay, Ali. Many people who strongly identify with tribal or public causes, whether political, cultural, or social, often do so to compensate for a lack of personal grouping or fulfillment at the individual level. I think absolutely right. I've always said that, look, what leads people towards tribalism? It's when they do not have the confidence in their own reasoning capabilities to discover truth for themselves, to live for themselves, to establish a flourishing, successful life for themselves. And then in order to seek protection because they're afraid to face reality on their own terms, using their own mind as independent thinkers, they gravitate towards a group. They gravitate towards a leader to do their thinking for them. So it is absolutely the case that, tribalism and collectivism are appealing to those who will not, cannot, refuse to become independent thinkers. As we diminish reason, elevate emotions, we diminish man's capacity to deal with the world around him, we elevate collectivism. The more people gravitate towards collectivism. Collectivism is the solution for people who can't think for themselves. They want other people to do the thinking for them. And the more we denounce reason, the less we teach people how to use their mind, how to reason, the more they will gravitate towards a leader and towards a group. The group makes them feel safe, makes them feel like somebody will tell them what to do and how to live. Ali, what is the problem with fascist regime which enforces objectivism and reason? Well, by definition, a fascist regime cannot enforce objectivism and reason. A fascist regime is a regime that uses force. It is a regime that uses force to regulate business. It is a business by permission rather than by independence, and it regulates our individual behavior. So fascism is a system that rejects reason. It rejects reason as a faculty of the individual, rejects individuals pursuing their own values. Fascists will tell you what values to pursue. So it's a contradiction. Fascism is a system in which the means of production are controlled by the state. And the state dictates the values that individuals should pursue. So by definition, it is a rejection of individualism, a rejection of freedom, a rejection of reason. And you can't enforce reason. You can't enforce objectivism. Objectivism is a philosophy that individuals need to live by. Right? You can't even enforce capitalism. What you can do is enforce laws that protect property rights. But capitalism is a system that flows from enforcing the laws that protect property rights consistently. All right. Ugh. On not real socialism argument, on the not real socialism argument, Jamie says, left always says Sanders wouldn't be Mao Stalin, and that may be true, but can you talk about the policies that caused death in USSR, China, and others, and how close to Sanders' proposals they are? I mean, yeah, just to give you a sense, Sanders did support the policies of Chavez in Venezuela, which led to death and starvation and led to the complete destruction of the Venezuelan economy. And we're seeing that in the world in which we live today. Certainly, Sanders has supported regimes and supported policies that have led to the death and destruction that communism, socialism, uses. By the way, if you want to comment, if you want to challenge me, if you want to disagree with me, if you want to ask me questions, if you want me to comment on something, there's something called the Super Chat feature, which most people are using. But there's one or two or three or four or five of you who just want to spout off, Yaron, what about this? Stop doing this. Stop doing that. What about that? On the chat, well, if you want my response, if you want me to actually respond, rather than just blow you off, then use the Super Chat feature like everybody else. Like Jonathan, you could do that. Old Greg, you could do that. Yeah. Now, what would Sanders actually do? Sanders does not believe, it's hard to tell what Sanders would actually do. He would raise taxes on the rich. He would like to have a wealth tax. Does he want to nationalize industries? Probably not. Probably couldn't get away with it. Maybe he would like to do some, but not others. Would he want to collectivize farming in America? Probably not. I mean, the reality is that most of the death that was caused in, like, Ukraine under Stalin, in Venezuela, and certainly under Mao, was the consequence of collectivization of farming. When you collectivize farming, you bring about starvation because you just don't produce enough food. Would Sanders want to do that? Probably not. He would do a bunch of half measures that were leading us in that direction. Price controls, maybe, that would destroy markets. He would, to the extent that he was allowed to do and wasn't controlled, but stopped by Congress, we would have an incredibly destructive economy. We would have ever-growing, poverty. We would have a brain drain, people leaving the country. We would have capital flight and entrepreneurship collapsing. So it would be an unmitigated disaster. You wouldn't quite have the death and destruction of the Soviet Union because he wouldn't go all out in terms of nationalizing and all the industries and nationalizing farming. And I don't know that he would establish the gulags for people he didn't like and didn't agree with. All right, we are still about $111 short of our second hour goal. So I'm just reminding you and encouraging you to ask a question or do a sticker, but help us get to that goal. I see Adam has jumped in with a $20 question, so that helps a lot. So that brings the goal more into less than $100 now. So we're less than $100 away from that goal. So only $91, another $5 coming from Jacob. So less than that. So keep it coming. and hopefully we can make the $500 goal for the second hour. Adam says, compare cultures broadly. Aristotelian, Israel, Maimonides, Poland, Aquinas, versus pragmatic, Anglophile, Kantian, German versus Austro-Hungarian Empire. No objectives placed yet. Is broadly Aristotelian the best for now? Yeah, I mean, I think you're way too positive on Israel. I don't know. Is Poland really guided by Thomas Aquinas? I'm skeptical. Is the Anglosphere purely pragmatic? Well, it is right now, yes, but it didn't get to here with that. And is Germany Kantian? To what extent is it actually pragmatic? I don't know. I don't know if I would even categorize cultures like that. I mean, look, Israel is a very mixed place. I mean, if we're not talking about Israel as compared to the Palestinians, if we're not talking about defending Israel, compared to its neighbors and defending Israel from a foreign policy perspective, Israel is a very mixed place. Collectivism is prevalent. Maimonides was very mixed. Remember, Maimonides, he advocated for reason, rationality, but the consequence of that was primarily rationalistic, kind of scholastic discussions about every passage in the Talmud, rather than liberty and freedom and individualism. And the reality is with Maimonides that he also gave us, 553 commandments the Jews are supposed to follow. So Maimonides is responsible for kind of the ultra-Orthodox following a rigid set of commandments. Right. So Israel is clearly a very mixed case. It's a Western country. It's a pro-Western country that represents many good ideas and certainly in the area of science, technology, there is a strong Aristotelian streak. But in terms of government, it's a mixed economy tilted towards statism. From a culture perspective, it is still heavily collectivistic, and religion, both in its messianic form and its ultra-Orthodox form, are barbaric and primitive, and particularly the ultra-Orthodox form, particularly barbaric and primitive. Right. So I don't consider Israel Aristotelian any more than I think America's Aristotelian. It's a mixed bag of pragmatism and some Aristotelianism and a lot of Kantianism. I mean, Israeli academia is dominated by Kant. It's dominated by German Romantics. It is neo-Kantians who founded the major universities in Israel and have had a profound impact on on the humanities. I think a lot of the woke ideology was very common in Israel. So Israel's not exactly a paradigm of Aristotelian culture. I don't know enough about Poland. I just was in, Krakow. Poland's has benefited enormously from the fact that it was liberalized in the 1990s, that went through a period of economic liberalization and moved it towards closer to a free market. It's still benefiting from those liberalizations. There's not, and there's some liberalization that's happened since then, but the big push was in the 1990s. But Poland also has a pretty regimented and oppressive legal system that, as far as I can tell, the right wing installed. It has a media that's way too close to politics, to the political parties. It's doing well, but it's not blowing it out of the water. I don't know that I would associate with Aquinas. Yes, they tend to be Catholic there, although everybody who I spoke to in Krakow said that the younger generation, both on the left and on the right, is significantly less Catholic than previous generations were. No question, I don't know if you could say today that the UK is pragmatic. The UK is basically just selling out. It is basically dominated by guilt for the British Empire, and dominated by what do you call it? It's dominated by the left, one way or the other, because even the nativists are basically leftists in the UK, just as nativists are in most places. They tend to be leftists. So England is in one place. I think America is much bigger, much more diverse. And again, its intellectuals are dominated by by postmodern philosophy. So a post-Kantian kind of, post-Marxist kind of ideology. But yeah. So and Germany, Germany's rigid, still rigid. It's still got the Kantian mentality. It's still a rigid society. Again, dominated primarily by the left. Everything is a response to the left. So a more rigid culture, more Kantian culture. But they're all mixtures of everything. And suddenly, none of these cultures would be doing well at all if there weren't elements of Aristotelianism in them. And they would all be doing a lot better if there weren't elements of Kantianism in there. I don't know. It's the best I can do on the fly. Jamie, a friend recently said how upset he was with the gentrification of small town he works in and how it pushed out longtime residents. Can you talk a little bit about gentrification and its pros, cons, and is it a problem? I mean, it's a problem only if you believe that stagnation is good, right? Any criticism of gentrification is an elevation of stagnation. It basically believes that things should be the way they've always been, that things should be the way the past is dictated, that change is bad, that progress is bad, and that people should be rewarded or protected because they choose to stagnate. I mean, gentrification is a process of progress. It's a process of people coming in and improving a place. And so it's an overwhelmingly positive. I can't think of any negatives other than it shakes up and forces people who are stagnant to change and to move. So, it's everybody benefits at the end of the day of gentrification if you really think about it. The people who are moving out are getting much higher if they own the place, are getting much higher prices on their property than they would without the gentrification, right? The property values go up significantly. Now, if you're renting and the area is being gentrified, you have to move. But you're no worse off for that other than you have to move. But you don't have a right to stay in a place that you're renting indefinitely. So no, there's zero problem with gentrification unless you elevate stagnation to a value. And stagnation is a vice, not a value. To stand in place is to die. All right, for those of you new, I guess old Greg is, I don't know if he's old and I don't know if he's Greg, but he doesn't know. He just gave $10. He writes, "Hey, Yaron, I heard you asked $100 stickers and begging donations. Buy yourself a cuppa on me, and you need the money more than your viewers do." I guess so. So he's insulting you, he's insulting me. But as I said, I read everything that's put up there. If you want me to engage with you, you have to ask questions. You have to ask questions in the Super Chat. And they will be answered in the order they're submitted. Or if you ask above $20 question, they get priority. So money speaks. The more money you put in a question, the sooner I answer it. But just making a comment there is not gonna get me to engage with you in the chat. You have to engage in the Super Chat. You have to engage by asking actual questions. And as you can see, you can ask more than one question. You can respond to my answer. But you have to put a dollar amount to them. Just the way we run things at the Yaron Brook Show. You don't have to like it. I don't really care. But that is the story. I appreciate you doing the $10. I don't appreciate the insults, but that's okay. You're allowed to insult me if you pay. All right, Jonathan, you were great with the heckler in Lisbon. I appreciate that. I wish I was as good with the hecklers here in the chat. I think I did better in Lisbon. At least my audience in Lisbon, they basically, pushed the guys out of the room. And some of the hecklers I push out of the room by blocking them. But I guess when you put Fuentes and Tucker into the title, you have to expect to get a few irrational trolls to come about. All right, Rational IP. I registered for Ayn Rand Con Europe. Flight and hotels are booked as well. Really looking forward to it. Currently reading The Fountainhead. Excellent. Yeah, and I think the hotel is the Renaissance in Porto, which is a nice business hotel. I think you'll like it and very comfortable. And the conference should be a blast. So looking forward to meeting you, Rational IP. Nick, interestingly, Zoran acknowledged housing needs to be deregulated. Maybe listen to YBS, no redistribution when there is nothing to redistribute. Yeah, but he also wants rent control. So he wants to deregulate new housing and he wants rent control. So he wants to mix in. I think he's been influenced by, not by me, he's been influenced by Yes in My Backyard, YIMBY, which is a movement on the center left, which is advocating for eliminating restriction on building houses all over the country. Some more rational approach to the housing problem. Thomas, thanks for saving me from intellectual spiritual hell of ANCAP and introducing me to objectivism. I now have a job as a banker with the end goal of teaching. Any advice for a 21-year-old? With the end goal of teaching. Any advice for a 21-year-old objectivist? God, you're on the right path. You've got a good job. You've got a good paying job. Keep learning. Keep studying. Don't give up on studying. Don't ever pretend to yourself that you know it all. Both in the field in which you're making a career, banking, there's so much to learn. There's always so much to grow. And in terms of objectivism, there's so much more to learn. There's so much more to grow. So I'd say keep learning, keep integrating, keep being engaged. And I don't know what you want to teach and where you want to teach, but figure out how ultimately you want to make that transition from banking into teaching. But it's doable. I know a number of people who've done it, and it's super exciting. Jamie, thank you, Thomas. Also, Jeremy Boring apparently had a lot of nice things to say about Fuentes a few years back. So how Daily Wire is still together, no clue. I hadn't heard that. Jeremy was was the co-founder with Ben Shapiro of the Daily Wire. I didn't know that he had nice things to say about Fuentes. Go figure. Even when they seem reasonable, it turns out that some of these people are nutcases. Jamie says, Sam, this is like third 20 Canadian dollar question from Jamie. So thank you, Jamie, today. Sam Cedar said on PBD show, tax rate should be 90+%, plus like a 50s, 60s, plus like in the 50s and 60s. Not the revenue, but so employees would invest in labor expense instead of paying it in tax. This seems so backward to me. Can you debunk? So employers would invest in labor expense instead of paying taxes. I don't understand it either. I don't know what he meant by that. But nobody actually paid 90% of taxes in the 50s and 60s. I mean, the interesting thing is the effective tax rate, the tax rate people actually pay, is actually higher today than it was in the 50s and 60s, even at the top bracket. There were so many exclusions, so many deductions, so many ways around it that almost nobody actually paid it. There were a ton and ton of loopholes by doing that. But I'm not sure if he means that 90% tax rate should be on individuals, should be on corporations. If they spend it on other things like investment. I'd have to figure out exactly what he said and then debunk it, because otherwise it's too floating. And said, did you see Stephen Moore resigning from Heritage? Yes. That's good. I like Stephen Moore. I liked Stephen Moore, except for the period where he sold out and went to work for the Trump administration and talked the Trump talking points, even though he knew they were wrong. Stephen Moore knows economics too well to actually participate in the Trump administration. Kenny, what do you think this means for the future of the American right? I don't know. To the extent that this continues and that they're not willing to denounce the Fuentes and the Tuckers, to the extent that they remain kind of obligated to them and maintain them in their circle, then the right is either dead or it will win, but it will become a fascist right, and what we will get in America is fascism from the right. So, it's the American right is, to some extent it's always been, but it's particularly right now anti-intellectual, anti-philosophical, anti-ideological. And that's why, by the way, they latch onto religion, because it's all they have. Ideas are beyond them. So all they have left is religion, and that's what they latch onto. All right, Kenny. I love your courses on Peterson Academy, worth the money just for your content. Thank you. I now have 5 courses. 5 courses. It is worth signing up just for that, because I think monetarily it's a good deal to sign up for a year just to do my 5 courses. Each one of those courses is about 9 hours long. I've got one on capitalism, one on finance, one on money, one on trade, and one on the corporation, history of business in America. Those 5 courses, unique content you won't get anywhere else. Each one of them is 9 hours. So that's 9 times 5, 45 hours of content. I'm not sure how much the Peterson Academy costs, but for 45 hours of content, which you can't get anywhere else, I think it's a pretty good deal. So, check it out. Thank you, Kenny. I really appreciate you giving me that feedback. I hope. Please, if you do consume my content on Peterson Academy, please write positive comments. Please let them know that you liked it so that they have me back again. I don't have anything scheduled yet in terms of going back there, but I'm hopeful that next year I'll be able to do another few courses. So that would be terrific. Andrew, a coworker told me he believes in his own happiness as moral. I'm sure we disagree on the means of happiness, but we're allied on the purpose of life. Many, at least, value happiness even if they don't understand selfishness. Yes, I think that's a huge step forward. I always say, if we can agree that the purpose is your own flourishing, your own happiness, now we can debate what leads to that, what actually results in that, what are the virtues and values that achieve that, and I think that's a much more fruitful debate. Let's get the beneficiaries out of the way. If we agree that I should be the beneficiary of my own actions, my own happiness, that clears up a lot of stuff, and the debate is much more fruitful from that point on. Jacob, any thought on the ACA subsidy drama? A catalyst for more freedom or a nothing burger? I'm leaning towards a nothing burger. It's a nothing burger. Nothing is going to change. Nothing will happen. The Trump administration has had many, many opportunities to get rid of the ACA and replace it with something else. They could have, as part of the big, beautiful bill, they could have increased health saving accounts. which was the solution, and they never did. So now they're suddenly remembering that they could do all that. I don't think it'll come to anything. I think it'll be nothing. Christos, dear Iran, please consider forming a political party. Millet did it, so there may be still a glimmer of hope to save us from downfall. I mean, the big difference is I live in the United States. He's in Argentina. Argentina is a country of, I think, 20 million. The United States, 350 million. To gain attention in the United States is very difficult. Look at how much attention I'm gaining. Not that much. If I form a political party, I'll get, how many votes will I get? Almost none. How would I get out there? How would I get any attention? On the other hand, Argentina is much more centralized, much easier. But look, Millet is a unique character. I'm no Millet. And Argentina was also much more desperate than the United States is today. But there has been a political party formed. What's his name? The actor. I can see his face, but his name will not come to my consciousness. Isn't that amazing? But somebody in the chat will let me know. Has formed, Mark Pellegrino, has formed the Capitalist Party. It exists. Look up Capitalist Party of America, and you will find it. I think they have a pretty good, program, political program, and American Capitalist Party, and you can subscribe to them, and hopefully one day they will run candidates. But basically, there's no point in me duplicating the effort that they've already done. If you're going to go into politics, that's one way. Another way is to go into one of the existing parties and try to change it within. I'm not against going into politics. Not something I want to do. But, if some of you want to go into politics, go for it. Kenny, thank you, Yaron. I felt a bit depressed at the start of the show, but you're inspiring me to speak out. Great. Thank you, Kenny. I'm glad I am inspiring. Kiki Adelson said she was more loyal to Israel than USA. I didn't hear that. I'd be curious to see the exact quote and if it wasn't taken out of context. But okay, so she's more loyal to Israel than to the United States. Why do you care? Why does anybody care? Why does anybody care? So Adelson, with all her billions of dollars, she's an Israeli dual citizen with the United States, is more loyal to Israel than the United States. A, there's not that much conflict between the U.S. and the United States. And B, okay, so Adelson is. Does that mean all Jews are? Does that mean everybody is? What does that mean exactly? Does that mean she's selling out the U.S.? What does it mean? It doesn't mean anything, even if she said it. And I'm not sure she said it exactly that way. But I'd be curious. If somebody has the quote, send it to me. JJ Jigbees, I was able to talk 3 of my very anti-Israel friends to more of a center position. Considering how strong their opinion was before that, it was a great achievement. It is possible. Good for you. I think if you can't talk people on this issue out of their position, I don't know what you can talk them out of. I mean, this is not a hard issue. Let me make it very clear. The Israeli-Palestinian issue is not a hard issue. It's actually a very, very easy issue. And once you know a little bit about the history, and once you know a little bit about what's actually going on versus what you are bombarded, if you can't come to the right conclusion, there's something very wrong with you. I mean, there are complicated issues in the world. This one is not complicated. Maribel says, how much for Dr. Mommy Patreon to sponsor YBS? I mean, we can, drop me an email and we can talk about it. Yaron@yaronbrookshow.com. It depends on how often you want mentioned and stuff like that. But all the other sponsors are basically doing $1,000 a month, and for that they get a mention. I try not every show, but almost every show. But we could come to a different arrangement if that is what you would like. JJ Jigbees, are you going to be watching Ken Burns' new documentary, The American Revolution? Maybe it's the doc we need right now. I mean, it probably isn't, because I can't believe that Ken Burns is going to, has a real understanding. I don't know who he's using for the documentary of understanding the revolution. But yeah, I will look for it because I'm curious and I'm interested, and I like his documentaries generally. I just don't know philosophically how aligned he is. But yeah. Let's see. All right, Hanu 8. The single tax by Henry George would have prevented Mamdani. Are you aware of Henry George, the economist? Have you considered the single tax? I'm aware of Henry George. I think the single tax is like a land tax, if I remember right. I've read some of his stuff. I don't agree. It doesn't make any sense to me from an economics perspective. I don't think he's a particularly good economist, but I can't argue the ideas right now because I'd have to brush up on my Henry George. But when I've looked into it, I was not impressed. I do not believe in a land tax. If anything, we should have a single consumption tax and nothing else. Maybe a VAT and nothing else is the only tax out there. If you have to have a tax, that would be the right tax from an economics perspective. So I don't know how it would have prevented Mamdani. Taxes are consequences of ideas. They don't shape ideas. So I think that's reversing cause and effect. Jacob, your review of Aliens 1-2 and Terminator 1-2, still one of the best episodes ever. Oh, cool. Yeah, those are good reviews. Those are movies I watched and thought about a lot, and they're very, very good movies, and they are movies with real philosophical content. You can check out those reviews on one of my shows. Just put Terminator, Yaron Brook, and I guess you'll find them. But those are some of my favorite movies from the 1980s. And I guess, are those all in the 80s? I think so. Old Greg, I already read his silly comment. Again, you can ask questions, Old Greg, but you buy the right to ask questions. You probably talked about this before, but what do you think U.S. economic policy on China should be? Is there a valid argument for protectionism there? No, I don't think there is. I think there is a valid argument for restricting exports to China of militarily sensitive things like very advanced chips, although we have to realize that will not stop them from developing their own and will not stop them from smuggling them in. There are various ways in which they get smuggled in. But in terms of China, I don't know, producing toys, I don't see any valid argument for protectionism. There might be a valid argument for you as an individual not buying stuff from China. That argument might be valid, that is boycotting China as an individual. But the job of the government should only intervene in trade if, one, the item involved is a national security, weapons, things that go into weapons, or B, if you're at war, or you're about to go to war, or you're convinced you're about to go to war. And I don't think we're about to go to war with China, but I'm willing to be convinced we are. And then it's not protectionism. Then you just embargo them. You don't trade with an enemy. And if China is an enemy, a foreign policy, militarily enemy, then we shouldn't trade with them, period. But then if they're an enemy, why is Trump meeting with them? Why is Trump going to Beijing early next year? Why does he keep praising Xi? Obviously, we don't perceive them as an enemy, so there's no reason to have protectionist policies against them. I just don't get it. Frank says, so frustrating. Even Sam Harris thinks billionaires, ruined by Ayn Rand, have an altruistic duty to be generous to the common good, ignoring money's role as a means to wait for opportunities like AI. Individualism is so resented. Thank you, Frank. That's $50. And I agree with you completely. It is unbelievably frustrating. Altruism is so deeply ingrained even in some of our best intellectuals, and I consider Sam Harris, in spite of our disagreements, one of our best intellectuals. It is, he basically resents individualism, resents the idea of wealth creation versus wealth redistribution, resents the idea that some people contribute to that wealth creation significantly more than others, and therefore deserve to earn much more than others, and because they create it. It's absolutely absolutely frustrating and disappointing because, again, Sam is smart. Sam is smart. And I think, I think it's sad because Sam has a very negative view of Ayn Rand, which I think if he really was willing to engage in Ayn Rand's ideas, he might not agree with her, but he wouldn't be anywhere near as negative as he is today. Jamie, Sam was essentially saying corporations would be incentivized to put more money in hiring employees. Okay, this is the other Sam. More money in hiring employees, since the money would be going to tax anyway. Oh, so you want corporate taxes to be 80 to 90% as well. None of that makes any sense, right? Because anytime a business is investing, and money is always invested, right? So let's say the corporation has a lot of money and it decides to buy back stock. So it buys back stock, so the investors have a lot of money now. What do they do with that money? They invest it. And what does that investment ultimately do? It results in hiring employees. So the way to get more employees hired is to increase investment. So you should reduce taxes on investment, like capital gains taxes, to zero. And that's how you increase investment. And that's how you increase employment. Yeah, but that's just upside down logic. And if it's going to taxes anyway, why would they rather have employees? I guess they get some value from the employee, but they don't get to sustain enough profit to make it worthwhile, the effort to hire the employee. At 90% corporate taxes, you just don't have business. It just collapses. You just have stagnation on a scale that I don't think Sam or anybody else can imagine. This is a different Sam, not Sam Harris. Jacob, if everyone tells you that Jeremy used to say nice things about Fuentes, if someone tells you, isn't it a responsible thing to verify before just believing at face value? Yeah, I agree. I didn't accept it at face value. I said I didn't know that. And I think I said, if he said that, then that's terrible. But I didn't know that he said it. And I don't know that he said it. I agree that you shouldn't just accept it at face value. I do have some respect for my super chatters that they don't just make stuff up, on the other hand. So, but I do want to see the quotes and make sure they're not taken out of context. It's so easy to take stuff out of context. Andrew, why wasn't Rourke jealous of Keating's material success and prestige? Well, because material success and prestige didn't matter that much to Rourke, and I think he recognized that this was that Peter Keating sold his soul for that. So why be jealous of somebody who to gain it had to sell his soul? Right? So, yeah. Oh, I'll read this from Greg because it's so... Yaron says all sorts of things without verifying them, quotes people without saying actual quotes, and makes accusations without merit. Greg just did exactly what he accuses me of doing. Like, he gave no examples of me saying things without verifying them. He gave no examples of me quoting people without using actual quotes. And he made gave no examples of accusations I made that were without merit. Indeed, my accusations are with merit. I don't always quote people exactly because I don't have the quotes with me, but I paraphrase the quotes. If they are not exactly right, then challenge me, show me where they're wrong. I don't see people doing that. Nobody's done that. I've never seen, people always make this accusation against me, but I've never seen anybody actually give me an actual example. They say I say, what's his name? Nick Fuentes is an anti-Semite without giving quotes. It's so obvious that he's an anti-Semite. All my paraphrasings have been absolutely accurate. The fact that I won't show you videos of Nick Fuentes, just go check him out. All of it, all of that, all the Nick Fuentes stuff is 100% correct, what I've told you. It's not even exaggerated. And I just don't want to put you through the agony of having to watch the garbage that is Fuentes. But everything I say about him is absolutely true. Do I accuse Tucker and Fuentes of anti-Semitism? Yes. And I've showed you on Tucker many times the fact that he is anti-Semitic, and I've given examples, and I've showed videos of Tucker. I've actually showed videos. He's absolutely anti-Semitic. I've explained why he's anti-Semitic and how his anti-Semitism reflects themselves. You might disagree with my evaluation, but I always provide evidence. And the fact that you are challenging the idea that Tucker and Fuentes are anti-Semitic just shows how ignorant evader you are. You're just an ignorant evader. So anybody, I mean, even Nick Fuentes is not going to deny his anti-Semitism. Tucker will, but he's an anti-Semite. The very fact that he's devoted, well, anyway, I don't need to defend it now. But, you know, to deny the anti-Semitism of Nick Fuentes, put aside Tucker Carlson, to deny the anti-Semitism of Nick Fuentes requires unbelievable evasion. It requires blindness to what he actually says. It requires unthinking dedication and admiration for the person and negation of his ideas. It requires the mindlessness of a tribalist. And that's what old Greg is, a mindless tribalist. And it's sad. It's sad that there are so many people, because again, it's not subtle with Fuentes. It's not, I need to interpret it. But it's not that subtle with Tucker. Tucker's a little bit more subtle because he tries to hide it, because he knows that it's disrespect. You know, he still gets invited to nice parties, and he wants to keep getting invited to nice parties. And if he actually came out as an anti-Semite and made it more explicit, he might not be invited to those parties. So Tucker hides it a little bit. He gives it some kind of prestige. But Nick doesn't hide it. Fuentes doesn't hide it. So to not identify it with Nick Fuentes means you've turned off your mind. You've just flipped the switch. And I judge. I'm going to give you my opinion on everybody. And I'm going to back it up with facts. And with Nick, I mean, the main fact is just watch any segment of his shows, and you will find it. All right, guys. I mean, it's like, was Hitler anti-Semitic? I wonder. Here's Greg. Here you go. Maybe this will help you confirm sources and educate yourself. Also, ask yourself why anyone is going against Jews again. Why? Why against Jews? Definitely never their fault. Well, it's not their fault this time. It wasn't their fault in most other times. There are many reasons to go after Jews. You know, starting with the claim that they killed Jesus, and on with the fact that they denied Jesus, that they didn't convert to Christianity. You could actually educate yourself by studying the history of anti-Semitism and what its sources are. But the fact that they're successful, that they're a minority, that they're an other, that they're strong, that they're capable, that they're able, that they have sustained their own state. I mean, there is a long history of white people anti-Semitic, which I've analyzed many times, the intersectionality on the left, and then the right, primarily driven by Christian anti-Semitism. Nothing Israel does is the cause of anti-Semitism. Even the bad stuff that Israel does, and it does do some bad stuff, does not cause anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism precedes anything that Israel might do. Right. Maz from Oz. Come to Australia and speak any way you can, any way you can here. We need you more than ever. Look, Maz, thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, you do need me more than ever, and so does the rest of the world. Everybody does. I'll just say this. I go where I'm invited. Organize an event for me. Tell me I can get you 100 people in Melbourne to come and listen to you give a talk, and I will come. So I'm happy to come to Australia, but I have no way to organize these events. I need people on the ground, like the team in. I'll just give a shout out to the team in Portugal, who organized the two events that we live streamed to you. And they terrific. The first one had about 60 people. The second event had about 150 people. They were terrific events with big time celebrities, local celebrities, and they were good events. And if you want me to come to Australia, get a group together, organize some events, let me know, let's schedule a time, and I will come. I am available to all of you out there. If you're willing to organize or facilitate events for me, I will come and I will speak. All right, guys, have a great rest of your weekend. I will see you tomorrow. We'll see what we talk about tomorrow. I'm not sure. Maybe we'll try to make it a positive show. But thank you to all the super chatters. Thank you to all of those who beat off some of the Fuentes fans. And yeah, bye everybody.